In this lesson, we'll learn how to manage and save our colors using Illustrator's Swatch panel. Okay, so in the previous lesson, we discussed different places inside our interface where we can actually go and make color selections, being our color picker, our color panel, and our swatches panel. Now, let's go ahead and dive into the swatches panel in a little more detail. And let me just go ahead and undock that here and drag that over here into the corner of our screen so we can work with just this panel. And now the swatch panel is going to be the main location where you go to save and actually manage custom colors throughout your document. Now, if we look here and sort of take a tour of this panel, you can see here that there's several default swatches loaded into the panel here at the top. We start with the no-fill swatch, we've got the registration swatch, and we've got a white and a black swatch. Now, we've got several gradient swatches here. We're going to talk about gradients in an upcoming lesson. We've also got some pattern swatches. Now, if you remember back when we created our pattern brush, we actually drug each one of these 5 swatches here into the swatch panel. It was a graphic that we had created here on our document. So we've got a couple of different custom color groups here. We've got one for grayscales and one for bright colors. These are 2 default color groups. So let's go through these buttons here at the bottom of the swatch panel. This button right here is going to be to open a custom swatch library. Now, Illustrator comes preloaded with a lot of different color swatch libraries, and we're actually going to talk about this here more in just a moment, but let's come through here, and this button right here is going to allow you to show and hide different types of swatches in your panel. This button right here is going to let you look at the swatch options for a selected swatch. This button right here will create a new color group for your swatches, and then this button right here will actually create a new swatch. And if we have one swatch selected, then we can actually come in and duplicate that swatch by selecting this new button as well. So we've got here lastly a trash can icon which will discard a swatch from this panel. Now, it is important to also know that the swatches in this panel are independent to this Illustrator document. So if we remove swatches from this panel, it's only going to affect the swatches in this document. New documents, they're going to come up with the default swatch selections, and we're not going to affect anything in other documents. So I tell you what, let's go in and take a look at some of the swatch options here. Now, I've got here a custom swatch that I've created. Let's just go ahead and create another new swatch because we've got something different going on here, and I want to show you what that means. Let me just reset my my colors to default by hitting D, and then I'm going to come over here and hit New Swatch. Now, notice here that we get our new swatch dialog, and the swatch name is set to the CMYK value, which is currently 0000. So let's go ahead and just call this one New Swatch. Let's call it New Swatch 2. And the next option you see here is for color type. Now, by default, it's set to process color. Now, a process color is going to use any of the 4 process inks to actually mix that color. Now, the process inks are cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Now, the other option is to choose a spot color. And a spot color is actually going to be a pre-mixed color. And just a word of advice regarding spot colors, you may check with the printer you're intending on using to make sure that you're choosing the correct color matching system. Now, notice here that the global option for spot color is grayed out because this is a spot color is always going to be a global selection. So I'll tell you what, let's just go ahead and switch it back to process for right now, and let's make sure this global option is checked. I want to come down here and configure my swatch. Let's go ahead and maybe make it sort of a green swatch. Maybe we make this really green, really cool green here. So we'll just set it somewhere around in there, and let's go ahead and hit OK. Now, notice here that we've added a new swatch to our swatch panel, and it looks sort of like this swatch right here. So we've got, if we deselect that, you can see it's got a little white corner on that swatch. Let's come in here now and take a look at what happens if we change this process color to a spot color. Now, notice that a little spot appears in that panel. So this little white corner indicates that that's a global swatch, and the little spot in there is going to indicate that it's a spot color. So a couple little visual changes to the appearance of the swatch. I tell you what, let's come over here and change the view for our swatches panel because this is actually going to change the way those 2 elements are displayed. So I tell you what, let's come over here and let's choose this small list view option. So again here, going and changing that view, you can see here that there's some different icons, and we've got our registration and no fill here, but that green swatch, remember this green swatch was not a spot color, but it was a global color. So we've got this particular icon right here. This icon represents Well, it indicates that we're in CMYK color mode for this document. So you can see here that most of these swatches are actually going to have that icon. But if we come down here and we take a look at this spot color, you can see that that icon is again changed, and we have a little square with a spot inside it. Now, I usually use mine in this small thumbnail view. All right. I tell you what, let me go ahead and create a new color group here for these new swatches that I've created. Let's call this color group, let's just call this custom colors, and hit enter. And notice here I had this swatch selected, so I went ahead and moved that down into this color group. I'm going to go ahead and select this swatch as well and drag it down. And you know what, let's see if maybe we can drag one of these pattern swatches down. Notice that that won't drag into this color group. That's because the color group can't contain patterns and it can't contain gradients. So if I were to grab maybe one of these gradient swatches and try and drag it into the group, notice we can't do that either. So our custom color groups can only have either process or spot colored solid swatches in them. So I tell you what, a few minutes ago I mentioned that you need to make sure and understand what color matching system that your printer uses. So let me go ahead and show you some popular options for your color matching systems. Now, I'm going to go over here to my color libraries and I'm going to choose color books. Now there are a lot of different options here because there's a lot of different color matching systems. Notice that there's a lot of just this Pantone matching system. Now you want to make sure and communicate with your printer which specific Pantone matching system book to choose your color out of, because each one of these books is intended for something different. So let's just say we're going to use this Pantone solid coated library right here. So let me go ahead and open that. And notice we get another swatch library and it says Pantone solid coated. Now let me just drag this down and show you how many spot colors there are inside this one Pantone library. You can see there are a large number of colors here. So it may be hard to find specifically a color that you're looking for. Maybe you actually have the printed Pantone solid coated book in front of you. You have your color chosen from the book, but you want to find it in the computer. Let me come over here and let's just show the find field here. Now we can actually type in that number here in the find field. Let's just say we're looking for Pantone 356 coated. So we could actually just type in that 356 here in this search field. And it's going to search within this panel and find that Pantone color, and then we could actually drag that up into our swatches panel if we wanted to save that for use in our document. Now notice again it has a spot in the corner and it is a global color. Now let's take a look at what a global color does. Let me go ahead and just close that panel out here. I'm going to just draw in a basic shape with my rectangle shape tool here. Just switch to that with the M keyboard shortcut, and let's go ahead and apply a global swatch to it. Let's just zoom in here. And you know what? Let's just go ahead and drag a couple copies of this out. Let's go ahead and shrink this down. Maybe we've got 3 rectangles here. I'm going to go ahead and use my Alt keyboard modifier shortcut to copy that over. And let's come in and select this specific green, which we know is a global color. So I'm going to select that, come in here, and let's hit this preview box. Maybe we decide we want to make changes to our global color. Let me show you what happens when we make changes to this global color here. I'm going to come in and maybe we reduce the amount of cyan in it. You can see here how changing a global color is actually going to change every element in our document that has that swatch color assigned to it. So that's the benefit of a global color, is being able to make changes throughout your document just simply by modifying one swatch in your swatch panel. Now let me go ahead and delete these swatches, or excuse me, these shapes here. Now we can actually also save these swatches out so we can use them in additional documents, or we can bring swatch panels in that we have saved out from other documents. Let me go ahead and show you how to do that here. We can come over here and just choose Save Swatches from this little Swatch Library drop-down menu, and if we do that, you're going to see here that Illustrator prompts us to save the swatches, and it's going to save them as an AI file. Now it's also going to save them in a swatch folder that's buried deep within the CS5 Illustrator install directory. So make sure you're aware of where you save your swatches. Now it's also important to know that if you don't save these swatches inside that swatches folder, then they're not going to come up over here under the user-defined swatches in this little dialog. So if you're not worried about them appearing in this dialog, then don't worry about saving them there. If you're maybe sending them to another computer or you're emailing those swatches to somebody, then don't worry about it. But if you want them to come up in this dialog, they need to be in that swatches folder. Alright, so in this lesson we've explored Illustrator's Swatches panel and looked at how we can manage our custom colors inside the Swatches panel. In the next lesson we're going to continue on and we're going to look at how Illustrator handles gradients.